Humans have always found something to be scared of in the dark. The unknowns of what could be hiding out of sight in the shadows have proven to be the foundation of many a good horror movie over the years, with the time of day proving to be a more crucial component in this genre than any other. But what happens when scriptwriters and directors decide to switch things up a bit and set the terrors for the daytime? Now, we have already done a video covering this very topic, so I'm Ellie with What Culture, here with 10 more terrifying horror movies set during daylight. Number 10, Final Destination 2. Final Destination is a series that loves to divide audiences and critics alike, but it's an outlandish and fun addition to the horror genre. And there are so many reasons why Final Destination 2 is the best of the lot. Like its predecessor, Final Destination 2 revolves around the main character having a premonition about an impending disaster. Once she intervenes, death begins picking off the survivors of this disaster in a series of grisly and gruesome accidents. What makes Final Destination 2 so good is the painstaking amount of effort David R. Ellis and his team put into the highway disaster scene and the deaths that ensue. Most of the spectacles are done via practical effects, with the log truck accident still standing as one of the finest stunts in the horror genre. The fact that this disaster and the bulk of the accidents in the movie take place during the middle of the day helps remind audiences that death can come for anyone at any time. Number 9, Session 9. Session 9 is an interesting psychological horror flick. Coming from the mind of Brad Anderson, who had only been known for his romantic comedies up until the movie's release, this 2001 picture is the story of an asbestos crew taking a job to clean up an abandoned mental asylum. It goes without saying that it doesn't take long for some spooky goings-on to start impacting the group, with the dark history of the building combined with the tight deadlines gradually grinding away at their sanities. Where Session 9 differs from most films like it is through the fact that the majority of the group's work, naturally, takes place during the day. Using the real-world location of the Danvers State Mental Hospital in Massachusetts, the gothic architecture and unkempt feel constantly keep audiences on the edge of their seats, knowing there are dark secrets lurking on every wall. The vast majority of the movie follows the 5-strong group inside the building, but the sunlight creeping through the windows gives Session 9 a unique colour palette that permanently keeps things unnerving. Number 8, The Reflecting Skin. The Reflecting Skin is another one of the horror world's somewhat forgotten titles. The film follows a young boy named Seth living in an isolated farming community in the American Midwest during the 1950s. Director Philip Ridley explores the naive perceptions developed by children, with the movie revealing the sinister dark goings-on plaguing this community that Seth is shielded from by interpreting them as various fairy tale stories. What makes this such a clever direction from Ridley is how he contrasts the darkness of the horrors shown throughout the film with the constantly pleasant surroundings Seth finds himself surrounded by. The film's setting is the Idaho countryside, and the most enduring mark of Ridley's direction from behind the camera is in how frequently Seth is shown in golden wheat fields with an expansive blue sky above him. Disturbing, haunting, oftentimes quite disgusting, but managing to find a serene beauty in its presentation, The Reflecting Skin is a wonderful encapsulation of how much simpler life looks through the eyes of a child. Number 7, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Tobe Hooper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre has a reputation in the film world for being a sadistic gore fest, which it probably doesn't deserve. Not only is the movie fairly tame when it comes to actually showing the ins and outs of some of the Sawyer family's heinous crimes, but a large portion of the first entry in the franchise is reserved for setting the scene. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre opens with a group of 5 friends driving through the Texas countryside after final girl Sally Hardesty caught word of her grandfather's grave having been vandalized. Whilst the group are unknowingly introduced to one member of the cannibalistic family that would go on to ruin all of their days when they pick up a hitchhiker, Hooper devotes almost the entire first half of the film to the Texan landscape. For such a rushed low-budget title, the cinematography used to capture the burning sun and orange glow across the country really is something to behold, especially for a slasher flick. The group are eventually picked off one by Leatherface and his family over the course of the day, with Sally only escaping via the most convenient pickup truck the following morning. Number 6, It Follows. One of the most successful indie horror films of all time, It Follows takes the creepy feeling of having someone or something following you and runs with it to some terrifying extremes. Director David Robert Mitchell takes a show-don't-tell approach to delivering the scares across the movie, creating an unsettling atmosphere and utilising background characters to create a sense of paranoia amongst the audience. It is because of this that the film's most jarring moments come when the sun is up. From the off, the first victim of the supernatural antagonist is shown killed on a beach in the morning, exposing her mangled body for all the audience to see. From then on, protagonist Jay is shown being hounded down by the supernatural entity at school and on the beach in completely broad daylight, with the old woman shuffling around her school grounds being one of the most iconic scenes in the film. In fact, not only do these examples not only show that the entity doesn't take sleep breaks, Mitchell plays around with the nighttime cliche by having some of the more comforting and intimate scenes for the characters happen when they're all at home in the evening. A nice flip on the rulebook from the American director. Number 5. It and It Chapter 2. Whether it be the 1990 miniseries or the contemporary reboots, Pennywise the Dancing Clown will always be one of horror's most terrifying villains. And whilst the Demon of Derry makes his home in the sewers underneath the town and has more than a few jump scares hiding in the dark, some of the most terrifying scenes come from Pennywise doing his thing in the middle of the day. The iconic sequence of little Georgie being coaxed to float to by the clown comes during a thunderstorm during the day, and almost all the members of the Losers Club encounter Pennywise whilst the sun is shining during their fateful summer break together. Even when the group band together to explore the rogue's house, it's during the daytime. In It Chapter 2, most of the Losers Club reunion with Derry and Pennywise takes place during the day, with the legendary scene of the clown floating over the city with his arsenal of red balloons being a stellar example of how his presence is 24/7. Ultimately, both Chapters 1 and 2 do a sterling job in showing Stephen King's killer clown creation is just as terrifying when the sun is in the sky as he is when it sets. Number 4. The Birds. Based on the 1952 work by Daphne du Maurier, The Birds is one of Alfred Hitchcock's most enduring works and a landmark moment in the history of special effects. Based on real-life events that saw hordes of seabirds dive-bombing the California coastline due to exposure to toxic algae, development for the film went through numerous different creative directions. Eventually, however, Hitchcock settled on there being no reason explained as to why all these winged beauties would decide to have at it with humanity, which goes a long way in adding an extra terrifying dimension to proceedings. In comparison to the dark and shadowy Psycho, what also helps with this is Hitchcock's decision to have the majority of the film take place in broad daylight, with animals audiences are used to seeing every single day. The fact that something as innocuous as a seagull can suddenly be shown dive-bombing an entire school filled with children must have been quite the adjustment for audiences back in 1963. Number 3. Dawn of the Dead. As the name would suggest, Dawn of the Dead is primarily set during the first morning after an apocalyptic zombie outbreak. A decade on from its predecessor, George A. Romero updates the outbreak from black and white to fully colorized, allowing Tom Savini's superb makeup skills to come to the fore. The film also swaps out its setting from an old country farmhouse in night to a sprawling mall in the middle of a city in dawn. Whilst it doesn't quite have the same claustrophobic feel as the original, Dawn of the Dead helped write a new rulebook for zombies unseen in movies before. With these creatures in all manner of attires with gormless expressions, it was a truly groundbreaking moment for the subgenre. The fact that these zombies are all still happy enough walking about during the daytime and returning to familiar spaces such as shopping malls gives them a solid injection of humanity and lay the foundations for later titles such as The Walking Dead. Number 2. Funny Games. Be it the 1997 original or anglicised 2007 remake, Michael Haneke's Funny Games remains the creme de la creme when it comes to the home invasion subgenre. Suspenseful and unsettling throughout, the story is of two young men holding a family hostage and torturing them through a series of sadistic games. But there are a number of unique features the director uses to give Funny Games an identity of its own. The fourth wall-breaking commentaries, sudden switches in background music and choppy jump scares are all synonymous with the movie. However, what arguably separates Funny Games from rival home invasion flicks is how the majority of the film takes place throughout a pleasant summer's day. A powerful commentary on violence in Hollywood, the only justification these two men have for their heinous acts is that it's the filmmaker's wish. You never should forget the importance of entertainment, after all. The 2007 English-speaking remake is definitely the more polished of the two movies, turning the lights up across most of its scenes compared to its predecessor, but both are equally good at bringing out the terror from these two young men dressed all in white. Number 1. Yellow Brick Road. Riding on the coattails of films such as The Blair Witch Project that really introduced the paranoia fear of losing sanity in the wilderness, Yellow Brick Road follows a film crew attempting to discover the mysteries around the disappearance of an entire town named Friar. Apparently, the whole town, 572 people, had all garnered an obsession with the film The Wizard of Oz and disappeared off the face of the earth along the trail. The movie explores the growing insanity amongst the group as they are hounded by the constant sound of music and their time out in the wilderness. Yellow Brick Road is dark, somber, and gruesome throughout, though what stands it out from the likes of Blair Witch is how the majority of the movie takes place during the day. It's an interesting strategy, and one that really helps to emphasize just how powerful these spirals into insanity are for the characters. The daytime is often the moment where sanity is restored and the monsters shrink back into the shadows for a horror movie protagonist. So the fact that things don't switch off just because the sun is in the sky in Yellow Brick Road just helps sell the terror of this trail even more. And that concludes our list. Make sure you check out our original video too, but if you still think we've missed something important, then let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell. Also head over to Twitter and follow us there, and I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with What Culture. I hope you have a magical day, and I'll see you real soon.